Let me tell you something that sounds spiritual but is actually a trap. You can be so self-aware that you never actually change. You meditate, you journal, you observe your thoughts, you catch your patterns, you label your triggers, and yet your life looks suspiciously the same. Same emotions, same reactions, same relationships, same problems, just with better vocabulary. Congratulations. You didn't evolve, you just became more conscious of your old self. And according to Dr. Joe Dispenza, that's literally the definition of staying stuck in the same identity. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Awareness without change is just the past watching itself. You didn't transcend the personality, you upgraded the commentary. So let's break down the hidden trap of being too aware and how it quietly blocks your next identity. 1. You're not creating a new self, you're observing the old one. Dr. Joe says your personality creates your personal reality, and your personality is made of how you think, how you feel, how you act. So if you're constantly watching your thoughts, but still thinking the same ones, you're not evolving consciousness. You're just rehearsing the old neural network in HD. It's like saying, I'm not toxic anymore. I'm just very aware of my toxicity. That's not transformation. That's high-resolution self-sabotage. And this is where awareness quietly turns into the real villain. 2. You become the police of your own mind. You're not thinking. You're monitoring thinking. Every thought gets arrested, interrogated, psychoanalyzed, and judged. Why did I think that? What does that mean about me? Is this my ego or my trauma? Am I aligned or blocked? You're running an internal FBI unit called the Department of Overthinking Reality. But here's the problem in Dr. Joe terms. If you're constantly observing your thoughts, you're staying in the observer of the old self, not the creator of the new self. You're reinforcing the identity of, I am someone who needs to fix myself, which is still an identity. And now comes the real neuroscience trap. 3. Your brain is literally wired to stay the same. Dr. Joe explains this brutally clearly. Nerve cells that fire together wire together. So if every day you think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, react the same way, your brain physically becomes a record of the past, not your future, not your potential, your history. So when you're hyper self-aware but emotionally unchanged, you're basically doing this. Let me consciously rewire my brain by firing the exact same circuits again. That's like trying to go to the gym and lifting the same weight forever while narrating how strong you're becoming. Awareness alone does not rewire identity. New emotional states do. And this is where most people spiritually flatline. 4. You confuse self-awareness with self-transcendence. This is the sneakiest part. You think you're evolving because you understand your patterns, you see your wounds, you know your triggers. But Dr. Joe would say, understanding the self is stage 1. Becoming someone else is stage 2. And most people get addicted to stage 1. They stay in, I'm healing, I'm processing, I'm becoming aware, instead of, I am no longer that person. Because awareness feels productive, but it doesn't require risk. It doesn't require surrender. It doesn't require letting the old identity die. So you stay conscious but unchanged. And now we enter the quantum part. 5. Hyper-awareness keeps you in the known and blocks the field. Dr. Joe's entire work is built on one principle. To create a new reality, you must step into the unknown self, but hyper-awareness anchors you in. The familiar thoughts, the familiar emotions, the familiar personality, which means your nervous system stays addicted to the known past. And the quantum field doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to who you're being. So if you're constantly thinking about, what's wrong with me? What do I need to fix? Why am I like this? You're broadcasting the frequency of, I am still the same person, no matter how spiritual your language is. And here's the manifestation killer nobody talks about. 6. You leave no space for the universe to work. If you're always monitoring, controlling, analyzing, and fixing, when exactly does the universe get a turn? You're so busy being the thinker, the observer, the healer, the manager, the regulator, that there's no space for the receiver, the unknown, the surprise, the new identity. Dr. Joe would call this trying to create from the mind instead of the field. You're micromanaging reality instead of surrendering into a new state of being. Manifestation requires detachment, not obsession. Creation requires coherence, not control. So what's the actual upgrade? 7. The shift, awareness without judgment. This is the real evolution, not more awareness. Cleaner awareness. Awareness without analysis, narration, emotional attachment, identity reinforcement. Dr. Joe calls this metacognition with detachment. You observe the thought, but you don't become it. You notice the emotion, but you don't rehearse it. You witness the old self, but you don't live there. This is where the magic happens, because now your brain stops firing the old circuits, your body stops memorizing the old emotions, your identity loosens, and the future self finally has space to emerge. And this is the part nobody expects. Hate. Letting go feels like losing control, because it is. The old personality will panic, because it survives through predicting, analyzing, controlling, understanding. So when you stop narrating yourself, the ego goes, wait, who am I now? Exactly, that's the doorway. That's the moment where identity dissolves, where the known self dies, where the new nervous system can form. Dr. Joe would say, this is where you move from personality to possibility, from memory to creation, from past to field, from identity to energy. 9. Real awareness. Feels like presence, not thinking. True consciousness isn't loud. It's not. What does this mean? Why am I feeling this? What should I do about it? It's being here, breathing, feeling, without commentary. Presence is when the mind stops narrating reality and starts inhabiting it. That's when the brain becomes plastic again. The body releases the past, the field becomes responsive, and life actually starts changing. 10. The paradox. You don't create by trying to change yourself. You create by no longer being the old self. Not fixing it, not understanding it, not healing it endlessly, just not rehearsing it anymore. This is the deepest Dispenza principle. The moment you stop identifying with the old personality, the future personality becomes available, and that requires detachment, surrender, unknown, no narrative, no control, no internal police force, just coherence, presence, and a nervous system that finally says, I am safe enough to become someone new. So if you're hyper self-aware, deeply conscious, endlessly introspective, but your life feels like a beautifully analyzed loop, this is your invitation. Stop watching yourself. Stop narrating yourself. Stop fixing yourself. And start becoming someone you've never rehearsed before, because the universe doesn't respond to who you understand, it responds to who you embody. And embodiment requires silence, not commentary. If this kind of decoding helps you think more clearly, you'll probably enjoy what comes next. This channel is for people who are done observing their lives and ready to actually step into them. And comment this: I'm ready to release the old identity. Not to fix it, to outgrow it.